Trade Authority. Joining us now, Senator James Lankford, member of the Senate Appropriations, Intelligence, and Homeland Security Committees. Senator, good to have you with us. This is striking as preceding to the vote on the merits and the content, if we ever do hear what the content of this bill is, this free trade agreement, so-called, is giving the president the power for bringing legislation to you for a straight up and down vote. Is that really a good idea?
Yeah, you know, it is actually a good idea. Every president since FDR has had this trade promotion authority. This gives the president the ability to go start negotiating a trade agreement, and when they're done negotiating it and they've got it all wrapped together, to bring it back to Congress, then Congress has to look at it and say yes or no. This gives the Congress the same ability they always have. The House and the Senate both have to look at it and agree or disagree with what the president goes and negotiates. But this is no short thing. I hear a lot of people say it's fast track. This could be years in the process. And what Elizabeth Warren is very concerned about isn't that President Obama would negotiate something, but this is a 6-year agreement for Trade Promotion Authority. Really, the next president is going to have the bulk of this trade agreement authority. So it's really the next president, and she's worried a Republican, God forbid, for in her sake, would actually be elected as president and would negotiate this great trade agreement, would bring it before Congress, and it would be passed.
Don't you think she's really dealing in artifice here? She doesn't want to say outright that she's worried that Obama's got another screwball idea to put on the table that'll be against everything she stands for in terms of workers' rights, middle class values. Don't you think she's trying to avoid saying that rather than literally mean the next president she's worried about?
It could be. You'd have to ask her on that one. Quite frankly, I believe the American worker, when we compete with people internationally, we win. And we're seeing that over and over again. There's lots of manufacturing that's moving from overseas to the United States because of our low natural gas cost, all kinds of other costs of transportation that actually fit into the equation better here. So this constant back and forth about it's just wages. It's not just wages. It's transportation. It's cost of energy. It's cost of regulations. If we deal with those things, we continue to win time after time. You know, so I'm not afraid. I mean, when I go back to trade agreements, one of our big disagreements and grievances with King George when we were still the colonies was King George would not allow us to trade around the world like we wanted to trade. That's in our Declaration of Independence. We said we want to be able to trade with the world. We're still there. Since before we were a nation, we were a people that will like to be able to trade. We'll continue doing that.
Yeah, and it's also in our Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, that gives that authority solely to the Congress.
That's
there's
correct.
nothing in the Constitution that talks about expediting at the cost. You know, there's just something screwy to me, Senator, about the Republicans suing the President of the United States because it's exceeding his executive authority, abuse of power, and at the same time trying to impose greater power from them on the President. I mean, that just, actually, I just don't know how that works out.
But actually, we're not giving him greater power. All this is telling the president, go finish the negotiation. When you're done, bring it to Congress. We're going to vote on it. This doesn't give him the ability. There's this belief that he's going to go make a trade agreement. It never has to come back before the American people. It's not true. The only time that it's classified, quote unquote, is while they're negotiating it. And so when these 11 countries are all negotiating the details of it, that's not public because 11 countries are negotiating. But once they're finished, it's all public. And before we vote on it in the Senate or before the House votes on it, it'll be fully public. Everybody will have input, and there'll be a process in place to do that. But this doesn't give the president some sort of ability to negotiate it tomorrow and it never comes back. It does.
Putting the Congress in a very difficult position. To either vote up and down rather than to amend, which is the custom of our democratic constitutional republic. Well, suddenly the Congress and the Senate don't have the ability to amend. It's up or down. How many? Right. You know, I'm curious about how many of those up and down votes have ever been down.
You know what? I actually don't know. That's a good question. But I can tell you we're pushing the same way right now with Iran because we don't believe the president's negotiating a good deal with Iran. Right. And so if he keeps on this same path, we're going to vote that one down. And so I can tell you, I don't have a lot of trust for this president and the way he's handled foreign policy. It's difficult to look around the world and say that's been a great success in foreign policy in any area of any of his work around the world. If he negotiates this deal and brings back a bad deal, we'll vote it down because he has to have a lot of Republican votes to be able to pass this. And those Republicans, like myself included, are not going to support a bad deal coming from the president on trade. Now, the next president coming up, they may negotiate a very different deal, and we'd want to say, yes, let's put that in process so we can continue to expand our economy. But with Iran, I can tell you that deal's coming to us, and it looks like we're going to vote that one down, as the Senate's already set up now to say we will have a vote on this. We will not just let the president decide.
Senator, reassuring words, I assure you. Senator James Lankford, good to have you with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Lou.
In